1, 2, 3, funk it.
My darling, I love you, 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 I love you.
Okay, so if you haven't been able to tell in my other videos, when I was younger, I was really reckless, and so was my best friend. So when we were in high school, she calls me one night, and she was like, what's up? Like, you want to go to a sideshow tonight? And I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. And anyone who doesn't know what a sideshow is, this is what a sideshow is. And so they happened like 2 in the morning. And so I'm in the back seat. It's me, her boyfriend, and her cousin. And we pull up to this car next to us. And they all have dark ass hoodies on. It's a dark ass car, and they're staring at us like crazy. And we're like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? Well, in our back seat, we had a red jacket, and not thinking anything of it because we don't gangbang. They do, and they see it, and they start flashing, you know, their guns and stuff. And we're like, oh my fucking God, like, what the fuck? So the next thing I know, my best friend skirts off on the opposite side of the road, like going 80 miles per hour. This car starts following us, and we're going like passing all the cars, and then they start shooting at us, and we're like, okay, so they're shooting at us, and we're literally like, what the fuck? So my best friend's going like 80 to 100 miles per hour. We're weaving in and out of traffic, trying to get away from them, freaking out. And the next thing she says is, we're about to run out of gas. And we're like, fuck, because if we run out of gas, they're gonna pull up on us, shoot us, and kill us. So we're like, what the fuck do we do? So she's like swerving in and out of lanes, going back roads. And the next thing I know, she bounces on the freeway and turns off all her lights, and we're thinking they aren't gonna follow us. Well, they follow us. Her boyfriend is in the backseat, like physically shaking and holding onto a Henny bottle, crying. He's literally shat himself. I'm freaking out. She's freaking out. And the next thing I know, her cousin is on some wild, wild west shit. He rolls the window down, and I just hear pop, 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 pop. And I look up, and he is hanging out the passenger side window, shooting back at them, trying to get them away from us. And we're still going up and down the freeway. She gets off the freeway. Okay, so her cousin is outside the passenger window, shooting back at them as we're like weaving in and out of traffic, trying to get the fuck away. My best friend gets off like an exit or whatever, and they're still right behind us. So we're like, what the fuck do we do? Literally about to run out of gas. So she's still hitting back roads, and they shoot at us again. So her cousin reloads. This time he goes out the sunroof, like not all the way, but he puts like the gun out the sunroof and shoots back at them. And the next thing we know, we look up, and their car is doing like 3 flips, and we're like, oh shit, like what the fuck? So we get the fuck out of there. She drives hella fast to a gas station. Her boyfriend and I have literally pissed in the back seat, and we stay our asses in the house after that. Okay, so her cousin is outside the passenger window, shooting back at them as we're like weaving in and out of traffic, trying to get the fuck away. My best friend gets off like an exit or whatever, and they're still right behind us. So we're like, what the fuck do we do? Literally about to run out of gas. So she's still hitting back roads, and they shoot at us again. So her cousin reloads. This time he goes out the sunroof, like not all the way, but he puts like the gun out the sunroof and shoots back at them. And the next thing we know, we look up, and their car is doing like 3 flips, and we're like, oh shit, like what the fuck? So we get the fuck out of there. She drives hella fast to a gas station. Her boyfriend and I have literally pissed in the back seat, and we stay our asses in the house after that.
One thing people don't know about me is that I'm the baby of 16 children. So being the baby, I always had nieces and nephews that were my age. My dad used to take us on these really crazy adventures in this big, huge blue school bus. One time he took us to San Antonio to go to SeaWorld and see Shamu, and I was really excited, but I didn't have enough money to buy everything that I wanted, so I just ended up stealing everything. I stole necklaces and thimbles and all kinds of shit. When I got home, I showed my mother everything, and she was like, where did you get the money to buy all this? And I said, Dad gave it to me. She was like, okay. So the next morning at school, and my dad picked me up, and the only thing he said to me was, we're not going to school, we're going back to SeaWorld, and you're returning the items that you stole. That old bastard drove 10 hours round trip just to teach me a lesson. I loved my father more than anything in the world, but the only thing it taught me was to steal better and never tell my mom anything because she is a fucking snitch. And then later in life, I participated in armed robbery. Who knew?
Hello! Here's a funny story while you're watching. So my mother-in-law lives overseas, but sometimes she comes to visit and stays for a couple of months. She knows that random people come over to pick up cakes. Usually they're women, but once in a while I'll get a man. So I had a man coming over, and I told her to put her scarf on as well as I, because he was coming in a little bit. He came, he picked up the cake, and then he left. She told me, I kind of worry for you because you never know what a man's going to do all by yourself in the house. She kind of has a point. I'm all by myself. My kids are at school and nobody's home. Anything can happen, really. I told her, yeah, but you don't have to worry about him. She looks at me and goes, why? I started laughing. I'm like, well, because he's gay. She didn't understand because she's old school. She kind of lives in the village. So I kind of explained to her what it meant. She looks me dead in the eye with all seriousness and goes, so what? What if you change his mind? I mean, look at you. And I looked down at my torn pajamas covered in cornstarch, my makeupless face, and I'm like, seriously? This is what you think will convert him to the other side? I started cracking up and I was like, no, my dear mother-in-law, I highly doubt that'll happen. I thought it was so sweet that she thought that. This is just a funny story. Don't take it in a rude way. In fact, the guy who picked up the cake was absolutely the sweetest.
So guys, today I'm going to be telling you about the weirdest experience I've had while delivering pizza. It was a slow Sunday morning, not really much going on, but I see an order pop up on the screen. Me being the fastest pizza boy in the West, I made the pizza in record time and sped over to his house. Now when I got to the house, it was immediately like a red flag. There was no trespassing signs, beware of dog signs, kind of stuff like that. Also keep in mind, this was in a sketchy part of the town I live in. Now when I get out of my car at his house and start walking up the steps, I see someone in the window recording me on an iPhone like Slender Man, just hiding in the shadows. So since this was a contactless delivery and the directions were to leave the pizza on his front porch, I set the pizza down and got out of there as fast as possible. When I got back to the store, I was then told by my coworkers that happens all the time to them and he goes by 4 different names. So if you see my picture on the dark web, please let me know. Have a good one.
So let's do a little ghetto story time while I make these good old candy lamb chops, baby. If you're not following me on Instagram, you should. It's chef_Winnie_. But anyway, they had this celebrity chef. He saw me make these lamb chops. He commented on the picture, liked the picture, boom. So then a couple of days later, one of my chef friends say, Winnie, they got this celebrity chef with your food on his page. Go to his page, my lamb chops on there. Didn't tag me or nothing, but he tagged all his celebrity clients and said, new item coming soon. So I go to his inbox and was like, so what's going on? He was like, oh, I couldn't find your name to add you. How you couldn't find it when you stole it off my page, my baby? I love inspiring people, but don't steal it. Don't steal it, because you're not me. And that's all.
I used to have to do tutoring with my dad once a week, and to say I hated it is a total understatement. I was such a jerk to my dad during these weekly tutoring sessions. One time, he was trying to explain how to do systems of equations, and he kept saying longage, and I had no idea what he was trying to say. And finally, my mom, in her perfect English, said, he's trying to say language, Joanne, and I started laughing my face off at my dad's accent. Even though my dad was the one tutoring me and I had the Korean speaking skills of a 5-year-old, I unconsciously believed I was smarter than him because of his accent. Shortly after that, I used to see my dad sitting at the coffee table with a dictionary, studying and taking notes for hours. He did this for years until he started using words that even I didn't know. It took me a while, but I finally realized that the language barrier was not because of my father's English, and that sometimes it must have really sucked to have such an American daughter.
One day, a big racist family showed up to my job, and they was like, we don't want people of color touching or serving our food. So the manager sent them a white waiter. But I was confused because, don't you know the Mexican food you're ordering was created and is being cooked by Mexicans? Like, the KKK ain't cooking.
Last night I was cooking dinner for my husband. As he was in the shower, his phone kept going off and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was an emergency, so I went and checked. I found out that he was cheating on me with an older woman. I was so hurt, angry and upset that I called my grandmother, and she told me that it was my job as a woman to keep him happy, and the reason he cheated was because of me. It was all my fault. I was so hurt, I had hung up the phone and I kept stalking through his phone. I realised it was my grandmother that he was cheating on me with. I didn't know what to do, so I acted as if everything was normal. I gave him his favourite meal. I massaged his stoy. And then when he least expected it, I got a toy car and stuffed it up his stoy. Then I went to my grandmother's house and drop-kicked her.